Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Nun Beis and Gitin as he learned for a four shlema for Elazar ben Reuma and Yosef Israel ben Chaim Michal. From the top of the page, says the Mishnah, all these are seemingly nothing to do with Gitin, but again, it's because of Neitikun Olam. For the betterment of society, the rabbis made these decrees. Yisomim Shesam Faisal Balabais. Let's say there are orphans. In those days, it was more common for people, parents to die young, whatever the situation was. There would be orphans, and the orphans who relied on some balabayas there. They weren't officially appointed. The adults weren't officially appointed guardians, but the kids would stay there. There was nobody else. They took care of them. Or their father had appointed either before his death or maybe he went out of town. But whatever it was, the father had appointed him to be a guardian. Either it was an official guardian. We'll see, it could be a guardian of the court. Court might have appointed him, or the father, or maybe nobody appointed them, but they were just adults taking care of the kids. In all those cases, Chayiv Lasaper is saying the guardian is responsible that if there are fields and there's fruits and vegetables, things of that sort that have to be taken meiser from. The rice, it's only, of course, for the 5 grains, wine and oil, but there are abundant on other fruits and vegetables. So they have to take meiser for the children. In other words, the guardians were responsible. Now, if he was appointed, if the guardian was appointed by the father, that means the father was a friend of the guardian and he knew him, then he should swear at the end of the period. In other words, when the children become adults and they can take care of their own affairs. And at that point, the guardian turns over all the assets, etc., to the children. The guardian must swear. It's not a shvua d'oraisa; it's a shvua d'rabbanan, like shvua shut. And the rabbis made the comment said you should swear that they haven't taken anything illegally. They haven't usurped their rights and taken away stuff from the kids that they shouldn't have. Right? They're only entitled to do what's good for the children. They're not supposed to take anything for themselves. So he should swear. Avo minu bezlin lo yishba. Tanakama says if Bezdin appointed him, then he doesn't have to swear. Now, why is that? We'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara will say because he would do it anyway. Just the fact that if a court appointed me to be the guardian or to be the the executor or whatever, the honor itself that people if the judge in the court shows such confidence in me that they trust me, that covered alone, I'm willing to do, even if I have to, even if I. Or the other way around, I'm saying the other way around. If the father appointed me, so I should swear because, the Gemara is going to explain this, we'll see. Tanakama says the father, he should swear because he's doing it as a friend of the father. Probably he got something in return, that the father did him a favor, so he's doing him a favor, so he should swear because by making a rule that he has to swear will not deter him from becoming the guardian. We want to encourage people to be the guardian when there's orphans, right? So would making him swear deter him? No, because he probably got something. He probably got a favor from the father anyway. But if the court appointed him, he doesn't have to swear. He doesn't have to swear because always say, why should I accept the court appointment? What do I get for it? I'm not getting paid. I wish also the other way around. Just the opposite. That's what I said before. That if the court appointed him, he should make a shvur because he won't be deterred from becoming a guardian if the court appoints him. Because if the court appoints him, that shows that they honor him, that they respect him, that they trust him. But if the father appoints me, just doing a friend, why should I have to swear? I'm doing my friend a favor, right? He's about to die, and I'm going to be a guardian for his kids. He's not paying me. Why should I swear? If you tell me to swear, I won't want to be a guardian. So the Tanakam and Ashal see things the other way around, but we'll talk about it again. We're a minu. So you say over here, what do you mean? How can you take maestros for other people? You're saying the guardian here should take Tumas and Maestros, should separate Tumas and Maestros for the children. It says Atem below Shutfin, you and not your Shutf. You can't take, if it's not with his will, with his understanding and his assignment, you can't take Maestro even for your Shutf. You have a guardian something, he has to take his, or unless he appointed you, right? But if he doesn't agree, here the children are like, they don't have any das, so how can you take Tumas and Maestros for them? They didn't appoint you. Atam, the same, the Atam teaches me the same. You, Larissa, not a sharecropper, Atam below a Petrubis can't do it for you. You have to do it yourself, meaning unless nobody could do it on your behalf without your knowledge, without your consent. You can't do it for somebody else. Can I go over and take trumas for somebody else that you didn't appoint me? So how can the apotropos here take trumas for the children of Chislo Kasha? In one case, it's to give them to eat. Kids need to eat. You're the guardian, right? The field's growing there. They have no other income. They have the field. So you have to eat, get them to eat. Yeah, it's in order to eat. If it's simply to store the food away, you want to store the food away for them, right? You put it in silos, keep it for when they're going to get older. You can't take trumas and mices. They can take trumas and mices later on. A lot of time here we see this in a brayso. Apotropos torment a meiser and lahachav laniach. Apotropos can take trumas and mices if the kids need to eat. You got to take trumas and mices. We learned the other day. Well, trumas and mices only if you're going to eat it. If you're not going to eat it, you don't have to take trumas and mices. So if it's for stored away, you don't take trumas and mices. Similarly, mochlan. What else do apotropos and what do guardians do for Yisomim? Mochlan bein ma'avodim mishpachas. They could sell on their behalf if they need food, and the estate has animals, slaves, women slaves, batim, homes, houses, saros, fields, kramim, vineyards. Again, if the kids need to eat, you as the guardian are entitled to sell these various assets in order to get them food. Also, you could sell on their behalf fruits, wines, oils, flowers. Again, if they need to eat, but not to store away. Again, from the assets that they have, you're the guardian. You're taking care of their assets. If they need a lulav, a rava, a sukkah, and tzitzis, these things they need. Interesting, you see, even though they're children, right? They still need lulavs and ravas and sukkah because they're chinuch, even though they're not mitzvah yet. You do these things, tzitzis. Kol v'shesh gives anything that has a fixed amount. So if it's a fixed amount, you can keep an accounting. Part of the job of the guardian is to take care of their assets, sell what's necessary to sell for food, but keep an accounting. What does this include? Let's say a chauffeur. Even a chauffeur has a fixed price. And things that you can't produce yourself. Maybe these, it says oslan, you make for them a lulav and esrog. Those things maybe you can make yourself. But things that involve are more professional, like a sefer Torah, Talmud, stam, kol kitzvah. You can buy for them also. Take from their assets. You can sell if you need cash, sell what you need, or take the cash if they have cash, and buy those things for them. Anything is a fixed amount. Let's see a Megillah, even a Megillah necessary. Vein poskin aleim stucca. But you don't set aside for them stucca, right? Make a donation for their assets. Vein or use their money for ransoming Jews. Low color because those things don't have a fixed amount. In other words, anything that has a fixed price, you know what things will, the lulav, arava, sukkah, tzitzis, sefer Torah, tefillin, mezuzahs, Megillah, those things have a price. You can keep an accounting of it. But if you start giving away stucca, doesn't have a fixed price to it, you don't do those kind of things. That you wait till they get older and they'll do what they want to do. Even people would send a lot of food for Avelim to help the mourners. They don't do that either because that doesn't have a fixed price. And they can't litigate for them, whether it's for their detriment or for their merit, for their betterment. We don't do this. It's more benefsi. In other words, they can't use the assets and say, okay, I'm going to hire this lawyer for $10,000. Maybe we'll get something. No. It says l'chus on my low. If it's for their benefit, why not? In other words, you say, if I spend $10,000 on the lawyer, maybe we'll be able to get $50,000, but maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be a loss. So don't spend money on their behalf thinking that you're going to gain for them. That you can't do. If it's something that obviously they can gain and there's no cost, then of course you could do it. An opportunist might say, listen, you have assets, but they're far away. Let me sell those fields or those properties that are far away, and we'll buy something nearby that's be better, easier for you to handle. No, don't do that. Or brother, you say that's a lousy field. Let's sell that and I'll buy a good one. My time because maybe the fields that you buy will be overrun with water or will go bad. In other words, that's not your business to do. What your business is to do is to just what's necessary to feed the kids and for them to do the mitzvahs, like we said, to buy for them, fill in mezuzahs, things of that sort, things that have a fixed price and things that are necessary. But don't start doing business thinking that you're going to do better for them when maybe they won't do.
No stock market.
Right, no stock market. Also, don't sell fields which are more stable than slaves, right? You're going to sell the fields and buy with the money slaves. slaves can die on you, and they could go bad. They can run away. But the other you could sell slaves in order to buy fields because that's considered more stable, the field you have. In other words, you don't sell one field for another field, but you could sell slaves to get fields. He says you shouldn't even do that. Shouldn't sell slaves and buy fields. My time because maybe the fields will not be quiet, meaning maybe they'll be, if you have a slave, he's your slave, right? He's got a collar or he's branded or somehow you know who he is. But if you buy a field, maybe it turns out that the field will have people who appeal and say, that's not your field. You bought it from Yankel. Yankel stole it from somebody else. Don't get involved in complicated deals. They also can't free slaves because they don't own them. They're just the apotropos. They're the guardian. They can't sell slaves. However, we said of Mokono son, if let's say they need the money, we said you could sell slaves, right? We said it's better not to sell fields for slaves. You could sell slaves for fields, or you could sell slaves, let's say, if you need money to buy them food. We said that. For food, you could do that. But so they can't free the slave directly, but they could sell them to somebody else. They need the money. So somebody else can free them. Rebbe says we had this before. Omer and I say, he can even buy himself out. Let's say somebody gave the slave money on the condition that this money will not belong to the master, in this case, the children. So he can redeem himself. He's not redeeming himself, he's buying himself. He's buying himself, like so he's no worse than somebody else is going to buy him. It's like selling to him. When he says he's redeeming himself, what does he do? I'm buying myself out, and then I'm freeing myself. And he said, but all of this we said before, you have to have fixed amounts, keep a cheshbon, you have to make an accounting with them after they leave your guardianship. You don't need to do that because if you follow these rules, it's not necessary to keep an accounting later on. You don't assign guardians. Now this would probably be Bezdin. Bezdin should, as we said before, there's three kinds of guardians. Ones who are sort of self-appointed. The kids, nobody appointed them, but the kids are living with them. That's the first case in the Mishnah. And then you could have cases where the father appointed them. You could have cases where the court appointed them. Court-appointed guardian, right? So the court does not make guardians out of whom? Women. This was in the days, again, when they didn't, Avanim and Ktanim are not reliable. Ktanim and Nashim, because women couldn't conduct business properly. They wouldn't be as respected in those days. Today it could be different, but in those days, women weren't respected. They weren't out in the field, in the market. So you don't make this. They mean it obvious. But if the father said, listen, I appointed this slave, he's loyal, he knows what he's doing, and I appointed this lady, he can do whatever he wants. Some stories now that illustrate the halachas. There was a guardian in the neighborhood of Rav Meir. What he would do is, he would do not like we said, he would sell property and buy slaves. Sell land and buy slaves. Rav Meir didn't allow him to do it. We said the other way is okay, you can sell slaves to get property because that's considered more stable. Don't sell one property for another, but you can sell slaves for property. Rav Meir didn't allow him. And Rav Meir had a dream. They showed him his dream. We're trying to destroy and you want to build. In other words, as if Hashem was saying that we want to destroy whatever the punishment is for the guardian or for the family, the Yorshim, whoever these kids were. We're trying to destroy his estate by having the guardian sell property and buy slaves. And you're trying to build, you were trying to build. Still, Rav Meir didn't listen to the dream. We don't listen to dreams. It's not. We don't listen for them. It doesn't. It's not an asset. It's not a liability. Either way, we don't listen to that. We don't look at for good or bad. We don't look at the dreams. Either the dream seems to tell me that I'm wrong, but I'm following the halacha. The Torah of Shemayim. How to betray? Famous story. There were two guys. The Igribu Satan. The Chol the Satan always provoked them every Friday afternoon. We got into a fight. On Friday afternoons is a good time to fight. People are fighting about Shabbos and about kugels and things like that. So they get into a fight. Rav Meir went there. He waited there, stood with them. He waited there for at least three Friday afternoons. Until they made peace between them. Shammai, then he heard the Kamar, the Satan said, "Vai, whoa, after Meir lahu government Beisai, that Rav Meir has knocked me out of the house," so to speak. He's talking about himself. It was the Satan. The Satan always gets up on Friday afternoon. Did you do this yet? Did you do this yet? Right before Shabbos, especially in the winter days when there's not a lot of time and fights break out. That's the time to be extra careful. Who Petrupas? We're at the 2 dots now, about 2/3 line down on the page. Who Petrupas? There was an Petrupas in the neighborhood of Shimon Levi. That became Mazvin Ara is up in Turin. He would sell land and buy oxen. Now, Shimon Levi didn't complain to him, didn't he? It was known what he did. He sold land. I would think land is better than oxen. So the reason Rabbi Shimon Levi did not protest was because he also like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said like this: I never call my wife my wife. I never call my ox my ox. My wife is my home. And my ox is my field, because without the oxen, the field doesn't do very much. In other words, you got to be able to plow the field, work the field. So he said, and I'm saying to say that an ox is as valuable as a field. Without the ox, your field is worthless. So therefore, that's why Shimon Levi did not complain. In other words, we didn't mention oxen before as one of the things you could sell or buy if you're a guardian for the children, for the orphans. But here he said that, you know what, if he bought oxen, sometimes you need the oxen. Without the oxen, you have no field. Now there were some Yisomim, as we said. Sometimes it's the guardian is court appointed. Sometimes it's appointed by the father, maybe before he died or whatever, before he took sick. And sometimes he's just, the kids are living with this man or this woman and they're taking care of them. So there was a woman who would be something of a after. They relied on a certain elderly woman. So they had a ox. Shokla, she took the ox and sold it. No, I sold it. Also Provim. Now, relatives of the children, apparently they didn't assume the guardianship. Maybe they didn't live there or whatever, but the relatives of the children would come. Who's this lady to sell the ox? Not going to answer. We learned that on Mishnah, the first words on this page, Yisomim, who relied on a balabayas. These are the rules, right? You have to give meiser, you have to sell what you have to sell. In other words, even though nobody appointed them, like, who is this lady? Who is this lady that came along and sold the orphan's ox? Who appointed her to be the guardian? So Rav Nachman answered him, our Mishnah said that. Who appointed you to be the apotropos? Nobody appointed her, but she's taking care of the business, so she's allowed to. Ivar Eicher, wait a minute. She sold the ox for $100. Now it's worth $200. She gave him a bad deal. So he said, yeah, but it went up, and when she sold it, it was worth $100. Now it's worth $200, but when she sold it, she did a good deal. She hasn't paid yet. They didn't take any money yet. If they haven't taken money yet, this is the law of Rav Shapiro. Now here's the rule. We know, how do you acquire something? If I buy something from you, I buy your glasses. If I pick it up, I made a kinyan. Or if it's something heavy, I made a mashicha. I'm kona. We don't say if I paid for it, because I paid for it. Either it's a shalosh of deraisa or rabbanan. It's a deraisa if you learn because kona miyad biyad based on a pasuk, or because rabbis made it to kana, you don't acquire it till you do it. Because if I give you the money, let's say I give you the money for your silo full of produce, then when I come to collect it a month later, they say, you tell me, oh, it got burned up. There was a flood. It got burned up. So I say, what do you mean? I didn't get it. It's still yours till now. So because that shouldn't happen, we say that if a kinyan between people is not done with money, yes, karka, avadim is sold with money, kesef shtar chazaka. But movables, only if I make a mashicha. That's the rule for commoners. But for hegdish, learned out of a pasuk, v'nasan kesef v'kamol, only cash. So he said, you know what? This lady sold the ox, right? And they first said, well, they sold for $100. Now it's worth $200. Yeah, but it went up in the rishus of the purchaser. Yeah, but they haven't paid money yet. She didn't get any money. She didn't get money for it yet. If that's the case, she didn't get it. There's no sale yet. In other words, she can demand more money. Why? Because when I said Shmuel, it's like Hegdish. We give them the kula of Hegdish, that it's not a sale until the money was transferred. And then so therefore you can get your money back. You can get your ox back or demand more money, right? Either get the ox back or demand more money. Another story like that, Chamre de Ravana Ukfa Yasmin, that was his name. Rav Ukva, I guess when he was a Yasom, his wine, he had wine in the cellar. Mashua Ba'arba Arba. And they when he was a child, he was a Yasom, people bought it and they acquired it. They made Mashicha, they pulled it for let's say $4 a barrel. Then the Iker went up in value, right? Become a Shisa. Now it's worth $6 a barrel. Also, when it came to Rav Nachman, Amalu, Han Rav Chanoi Baridi. That's what Chanoi says. Rav Chanoi Baridi, I'm a Shmuel. Let's see, somehow make the Eleva Kaspa. Therefore, they can get the higher price. In other words, when the Yisomim, either the first case sold the ox, the lady sold the ox of the Yisomim, or in this case where they sold his wine and the price went up, if they hadn't paid for it yet, they can demand the higher price or say no deal, because the Yisomim get the advantage that it's not a sale until money transferred like Hegdish. Now we're going to see some more complicated cases. At the 2 dots, about 8 lines from the bottom of the page, 7 lines. Moshoch Peri Miasme. Okay, let's say somebody was buying the fruits of the Yisomim and they made Mashicha. The Iker, then the price went up. So now the children would like to either go back on the deal or get more money. Hein Rav Chanai Baridi. That's what Rav Chanai says. If they haven't paid for it yet, they can demand a higher price. So let's say the price went down though. When the price went down, now who wants to go back on it? The purchaser wants to go back. Well, if you made Mashicha lo yeh koach hegdish, chomer hegdish. If you say if a commoner would have once he pulled it, once he made a kinyan on it, can't go back on the deal anymore, right? You can't go back on the deal. So that shouldn't be more stringent than hegdish, and you shouldn't be able to say that that if the price went down now, that the purchaser can go back on the deal, right? You don't say that. If you'd say that it's only based on the money, so you could say, listen, like if the price went up, the kids are entitled to the higher price because it only goes by money. But if the price went down, now they want the deal to be a good deal, right? They sold it. Some sold it was good. Here we say, you know what? The deal is a final deal. So we're giving some of the best of both worlds. However, we'll see it's more complicated. Let's say the Yisomim were the ones who bought the item, and maybe Shicha, the Mochrim, somebody in Shicha Mochrim made the people who made Mashiach on behalf of the Yisomim, meaning they were acquiring it. Iker now went up in value. They shouldn't have to pay the higher price because if they were commoners, the deal would be final. So you can't ask them for a higher price just because you're Yisomim. Zol, let's say the price though went down. If the price went down, now the Yisomim would like to go back on the deal, right? Right? Some of that's like what? You say, well, since they haven't paid for it yet, they should be able to get the lower price because the said that Yisomim like Hegdish. This is the good thing for them. You think that since he made a deal and said that since Rav Chanai Baridi said the name of Shmuel that Yisomim is like Hegdish and it's not a deal until it's paid, and therefore if they made Mashicha, if somebody made Mashicha on behalf of the Yisomim and the price went down, you should be able to say, well, the deal's not a deal yet. That's not good because if you stand on that right, sometimes they'll need, what happens if they need fruits for like nobody's going to give fruits until they pay. Because if I'm going to give you fruits now and the price goes down, you're going to want to pay less money. So therefore, it's not an advantage for them, and therefore the deal should be final there. If the price went up, right, and Shichle penalty asked me, so you say, okay, I made Mashicha already, get the advantage of that. I made Mashicha. Now you want to be able to go back on the deal because the price went down, not good, because then it's not always a good thing on behalf, because nobody will want to sell them, nobody will want to give them payers anymore unless they pay, because they're going to say, oh, you've got to take the payers now, when you pay in 6 months, whatever, the price will go down. We don't want to take that chance. We don't want to take that risk. Let's say the Yisomim bought payros. They bought payros, but they paid cash. They didn't yet make Mashicha. So Zol, if the price went down, they didn't make Mashicha yet, they should be able to get the lower price, right? The sum went up and the someone paid cash and the price went down. So they want to go back on the deal now, right? They want to go back. The price went down. So Hedyo didn't acquire it yet, right? Didn't acquire it yet. If he just paid cash, they didn't acquire it yet. So that shouldn't be stronger than Hedgish. He can go if he was a Hedyo, so he'd be able to go back on the deal. So just because he's Hegdish, just because he somehow have a deal of Hegdish, they shouldn't forfeit that right, and therefore they should be able to go back on the deal. But let's say the price went up after they paid for it. Okay, so you should say something in a hind of Chamalai Baridi. They said that in the name of Shmuel, that you him, the price is the price, and the price went up now. Now it went up. The price went up after they paid for it. The mocher, the seller, would like to go back on the deal. He wants the higher price. So you might say, yeah, but if they paid cash for it, Chamalai says that Yisom was like Hagish. If you paid cash, the deal's final. No, that's also not a good deal for the Yisom. It's bad for the Yisomim. Why? Because then the same thing will happen if you say the deal is final. What's the reason why we said if you hold that the Mashiach is only calling Rabbanan? Why did the rabbis make that rule? Because said if I buy your produce and it's in the silo, it's only mine when I make Mashiach, when I pull it, right? Because if you say the deal's final as soon as I paid for it, when I come to collect it and it's ruined or burnt down, you'll say, oh, too bad, it was my stuff that burned down. You don't want to have that situation where it's sitting and you don't have reshus over it. It's sitting in your property and it's mine. You're not responsible for it anymore. You're not going to go try to save it if there's a fire or whatever. So the same thing over here. If someone paid cash for it and the price went up and you say, well, they paid cash, but cash is final with them. Yeah. But if the price went up and they haven't yet collected it, they just gave money for it and they didn't make Mashiach yet. So you want to say that the deal's final and the mocher can't go back on, not a good thing for them. Because if you say the deal's final, when they pay cash for something, then they might lose it because they pay cash. When they come to collect it, they might not be there anymore. So it's not a good deal for them. So therefore, it's better to say that it's not a final deal. Yes, if the price went down and they want to go back on it, okay, the price went down, they didn't make Mashiach yet. But if the price went up, you don't want to say that the deal is already a deal, because it might be bad for them. Yavel Azuzi, we're on the second line on the base. Yavel Azuzi Yasme. Let's say somebody paid the Yisomim for the payros, right? They paid cash. Iker, if the price went up now, and the Yisomim would like to go back on the deal and say we want more money. Again, since they didn't make Mashiach yet, why shouldn't they be able to get more money? So the Yisomim, if it was a Hedjot, if it was commoners, the deal's not final until they make Mashiach. So that's what you would say if they were commoners. So the Yisomim shouldn't lose out. But let's say the price went down, and now the purchaser wants to go back on it. Say, listen, once the money exchanged hands, the deal is final, and the purchaser can't go back. No. Again, this is bad for the Yisomim. It's in the Sachel. They one time they'll need money, but like the Yavlu, and nobody will give them out the Yavlu Peiret. Over here, what happened? They got money for Paris, even though the person didn't make Mashiach yet. Well, you want to say now that if the price went down, it's too late, the purchasers can't go back on it. But if you say that, if some say, listen, you paid us for it, that's it, the deal's final. Next time when they need money, nobody's going to give them until they give the Paris. Obviously, if you give them money and you exchange Mashiach at the same time, then there's no problem. There's nothing to go back about it. If it went up in price, went down in price, the deal's final at that point by all accounts. If you paid money at the same time you made Mashiach. Here, the problems arise when you either made Mashiach before and then the price changed, or you paid for it and the price changed. So we want to give you some advantage of a cash deal, meaning that it's not a final deal until they get the cash, right? It's not final cash, but that's only if it works for them. But sometimes if you say it's not a final deal until they get the cash, that could work out bad for them. As we said, if somebody made Mashiach for the Yisomim, if the price went up, so fine, they made Mashiach already. But if the price went down, so you might say if they didn't, the Yisomim didn't pay it, they should be able to pay a lower price, but that doesn't work because sometimes then people won't give them the payros until they pay for it. And similar over here, when they took money for the payros, and then the price went down. So you might say, well, listen, that's it. The deal's final because you paid for it already, and some of them go by cash. That doesn't always work out, because if you stand on that right and say, well, I got cash already, the deal's final. Sometimes when they'll need cash, nobody will give them the cash until they give them until you saw them hand over the papers. So you have to look at each case. Amar Bashi, another of Kana, I of Kana, Chasmin Ashtara Diime, the Zeir Yasma. We signed on a star of the mother of Zeir Yasoma. Zeir was a Yasom, and his mother was like his apotropos apparently, or maybe she wasn't capable, but we signed on it, the Bizav ala Karka. She sold land to pay the poll tax, the head tax of the Yasomim, without an auction. In other words, normally when you sell assets of people who don't, can't take care of things themselves, like Yasomim, you have to make an auction and announce it. We're going to have a sale. There's going to be a public auction. However, here she sold it for the poll tax without an auction. In all these cases, there's no time. You got to pay the poll tax now. The tax man is not going to wait until you have an auction in 30 or 60 days. And similarly for food, you need food now. Like kfura for certain, but kfura says it's no chiddush in that, right? No chiddush about the kfura. The chiddush is on the other cases, right? You're certainly not going to wait 30 days for an auction to pay the expenses of a funeral. The funeral, you have to bury the guy right away. In those cases, you sell even without an auction. Amram Sava Apatripati asked me, but there was a man called Amram, he was a painter or the dyer, he dyed stuff. He was an Apatripati some Abram. Also, so relatives of the Yasomim, relatives always show up. When you need them to be the guardian, they're not there. After somebody else is the guardian, then they show up with complaints, right? So, Amram Tzva Apatripati asked me, also the relatives of the Yasomim came before Nachman. They told him, he's dressing and covering himself. He's using the assets of the Yasomim, what they call today a management fee. Took a nice management fee. You just do your job. No, I want a management fee. He was dressing himself from the assets of the Yasomim. He's entitled to that, because if he dresses like a poor man, people won't respect him. The Yasomim won't respect him, or people that he deals with, that he buys and sells on their behalf, they have to respect him too. He needs clothing. It's called a clothing allowance. He needs a proper clothing allowance, right? But he's eating and drinking. He's buying all kinds of food for himself from their assets. Below Ahmed, he's not a wealthy man himself. Maybe he found a mitzvah. Maybe he came into some money. Somebody left him some money, or he found something. He found a diamond in the street. But he's damaging, and he's causing a loss to their assets. He's not managing their property properly. Bring me proof to mafsid. If you bring me proof that he's actually causing the children's assets to be a lot to lose value, and I will remove him as the apotropos. Our friend, our colleague said, if he's causing loss in the you can remove him. We remove him. The Beir of Shila because he was court appointed, or father appointed him. He was appointed. You have to live with his decisions. The law is we can remove him if we find that he's not doing a proper job. Now, in the Mishnah, we said that the apotropos, there's three kinds of apotropos. One is that nobody appointed him. The kids are living there, and therefore they have to take meiser for the kids, do what they have to do. Then there are other cases where the father appointed him, and the cases where the court appointed him. Now, when the kids turn 13 or of age and they're able to handle their own affairs, the apotropos turns over all the assets to the children. At that point, does he have to make a shvua that I haven't stolen anything, that I've dealt 100% properly? Does he have to make a shvua? So he had a machlokes in the Mishnah. The first opinion says we go on to the Gemara here now, halfway down on the days apotropos sheminu some yishba. If he was appointed by the father, they have to swear my time. Had he not got some pleasure from the father, why would you agree to be an apotropos for no money? Apotropos wasn't paid in those days, so why would he agree? It must be that his father did him a favor. Father, my time. The apotropos was like a tit for tat. Okay, I'll be apotropos because you did me some favors. He's not going to be deterred from becoming apotropos just because he has to make a shvua at the end because he owes the father favors anyway. So you say, well, I have to make a shvua at the end, yeah, but since we're friends and you've done me favors, I'll don't mind doing you a favor. We knew Bezno Shish, but if he was appointed by the court, in other words, he's not paid and he's appointed by the court. Right? He's doing a favor to the court. If you make him make a shvua, so no, he will refrain from becoming the guardian. We want to encourage people to be a guardian. That's how the Tanakh learned. Abba Shalom is just the opposite. Chilafadron, the opposite. My time, the new Bezdin Yishba. If Bezdin appointed him, he should make a shvua at the end. Why? Called the Inishmanu because it became known that if the court appointed him, if you're a court-appointed guardian, that means that the court trusted you. That the fact that people heard that you were appointed by the court, that's giving you a great honor, because people know that you're appointed by the court. That means that you're a trustworthy person. They did the best and relies on you. He won't refrain from becoming a guardian by the court if the court appointed him just because he has to make a shvua at the end. In other words, as far as the other way, just because he was appointed by the court, because he was appointed by the court, he is so honored that he won't be deterred from becoming a court-appointed guardian just because he has to make a shvua at the end. So if the court appointed him to be a guardian, you can make him make a shvua. That's not going to deter him because he's very proud of himself that he was appointed by the court. If the father appointed him to be the guardian, you shouldn't have to swear there. I did you a favor. I did you a favor. Now I got to make a shvua too. It's scary to make a shvua. You might make a mistake. Right? I did you a favor. You did me favors. You're almost a shvua. If you compel me to make a shvua at the end, he'll refrain from becoming a guardian. And therefore we say that if he was appointed by the father, he does not have to make a shvua, because that will deter him from becoming a guardian. If he's appointed by the court, then he should make a shvua at the end, because causing him to make a shvua, compelling him to make a shvua, will not deter him from becoming a guardian. Amar Chanan bar Rav Ami Amar Shmuel. Hilchas Kabashol, the halacha is like Abashol, that a court-appointed guardian takes a shvua because he won't be deterred from becoming a guardian just because he has to make a shvua at the end, but not if he was appointed by the father. Then he doesn't make a shvua. However, even though we see the halacha seems to be that way, both of them make a shvua, whether a court-appointed or father-appointed, they have to make a shvua at the end. The halacha Gidvara. Gemara says halacha Gidvara. That's what Rav Lezer and Yaakov says, but the Gemara, the previous line said, if a guardian was appointed by the father, obviously before he died, Yishba, he should swear, because he's being paid. Amalei, being paid. Isis Kavo, did you bring a measure and measure out the money for him? Like, did you measure out his payment? He's not being paid. He's like he's being paid, meaning because had the father not done him favors, he wouldn't do it now. So probably if the father appointed him, it's because he owes the father favors. It's like the father it's like he paid him with favors, and therefore we say that if the father appointed him to be a guardian, he has to make a shvua at the end. So there is an opinion here that both have to make a shvua, but the Gemara said before that Amar Chanan Rav Meir Shapiro said the law is like a pshul, that only the court-appointed one has to make a shvua, the other one does not. And we said in Amar Aleph there was a machlokas also whether he has to give them an accounting at the end of his guardianship. The Mishnah brings down other things now, which are Neitikar Olam. Metamim Damanasach. There are three things here. These are called a hezek shein nicker. You can't see the hezek. It's not visible to the eye. What did you do? You defiled somebody else's produce. Let's say you defiled their truma, it can't be eaten now by a coin. If you defiled a zepor, it's not eaten by prushim, even regular chulin, as we'll see. So you defiled it, but you can't see it. It's not evident from looking at it. Or madama, you mixed up his truma with chulin. Now you mixed up truma with chulin. Who can eat it? Only the kohen. But since only the kohen can eat it, it has a devalued price. You can only sell it to kohanim now, much smaller market, lower price. Or menasech. Menasech, you made yayin nesach. It either means you made yayin nesach, which is avodah zarah. That's a terrible thing. Or menasech means you mixed his wine with wine that was already yayin nesach. In all these cases, It's not evident to the eye. So if you did it b'shogeg, you're putter. Putter of a loser, because you should do it. You did it b'shogeg. You didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know that it was usher, whatever it was shogeg putter. But mezid you're chayiv. You're chayiv what? You're chayiv to pay. Even though it has a chain of nickers, lo shmei hezek. You didn't really do some. It's not like you could assess the damage by looking at it, but it has a chain of nicker. Still, the rabbi said you're chayiv, and they may take it home. So people shouldn't do these things to their neighbors' assets. They shouldn't defile them or mix up truma with chulin or menasach wine. What do we mean by menasach? Doesn't mean literally rabbi or menasach mamish. It means you did it for avodah zarah. Now, if you did it for avodah zarah, there's another problem over here. What's that? You should be getting debt. Well, what are you talking about? Money. Shmuel Omer, Ma'arav, no, it just means mixing. It was already yayin nesach there. It was, you took the guy's wine and he mixed it with yayin nesach. Well, that causes all the wine to be asur b'ana, right? Avodah zarah is also even b'mashu. So either way, you caused a loss, and if you did it amazing, you're chayiv in all three. But what is menasach? Rav says it's literally avodah zarah. Shmuel says ma'arav. Ma'arav that says you're mixing up. You didn't do avodah zarah, but you mixed up his wine. You poured his wine into a barrel that had yayin nesach in there. Why didn't he say menasach literally? Right? Menasach, come rabinei. You wouldn't be chayiv to pay for it. Come rabinei, because if you did an action which causes debt and also causes you a responsibility to pay, if you're chayiv debt, you don't pay. Come leibin rabinei. You get the higher punishment, the death. So you wouldn't have to pay over here. If it's that, that's why Shmuel says we're not talking about doing yayin nesach, mixing wine for avodah zarah. We're talking about mixing your wine with avodah zarah wine. The idach Rav, who says what, that it's literally menasach. Rav Yomi, the kameram is only when it's simultaneous. The chiyuv for let's say you threw the rock or the knife and Rosh Hashanah from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, and you tore the guy's shirt with the knife at the same time, at the same second that you were over on Shabbos, you also caused the loss. You caused the chiyuv over here, and you picked up the wine. You were koneh. At that point, it was when you're responsible for paying. It's chayiv until you actually mix it. So you're chayiv for picking the chiyuv for doing it. The mezid starts as soon as you picked it up, which was a second before, a minute before you're chayiv for nisach, and therefore, according to Rav Yirmiyah, that's why Rav says we're talking about menasach mamish, that you caused his wine. Yes, you're chayiv misa for menasach, but you're chayiv for the payment. That was as soon as you picked it up, and maybe you're not going to get not eidim and asra, so maybe you actually won't get that. You don't have to actually get the capital punishment to be putter from the payment if it was at the same second, because maybe there was no eidim and asra. There still isn't any of common denominator. But if the common denominator doesn't exist, it's not there because you acquired it, the chiv to pay as soon as you picked it up, as soon as you had intended to do it. You're not chayiv for nisuch hayayin until you actually do it. So it wasn't simultaneous. Therefore, there's no common denominator. L'mador menasach, Rav, who says that we're talking here about doing avodah zarah, mixing it for avodah zarah. Why don't you just say, listen, you just mixed it. You took your wine and mixed it, put it into a barrel of yayin nesach. Why didn't he say like Shmuel? Mixing up, and all these things are mixing up. The tam and it's the same as mixing up. What's I'm saying? Mixing wine or mixing truma with chulin. Once you say that the rabbis made it, the Takana gave you a knas. Minat Torah, hezek shen nikolosh mehezek. But the rabbis made you a knas since you did it on purpose because of tikkun olam, the betterment of society. We don't want people to do damage, even damage which the Torah does not require you to pay for. The rabbi said you have to pay. Okay, you gave a knas. So why say Marv? Well, Marv is the same as Madama, is mixing up. Okay, it's true that Matame isn't exactly the same as mixing up, but it's the same kind of a knas. If you give a knas for mixing up this, you're mixing up that, same thing. The idach, what will? So that's why he says that's why Rob doesn't want to say that Nasach is mixing, because we already have Madama. The idach, what about Shmuel? What will he say? Knasu, knas mekasli ofina. You can't learn out one knas from another. Knas is not, it's not a svara. The rabbis made a knas in this case. Maybe they made one in knas in this case, not a knas. It's like when the Torah gives a knas, you can't decide raping is 50, Moshe Shemer is 100, killing an Eved with your shore is 30. You can't go by a knas to the knas. There's no, you can't say that you learn out one knas from another. Man do all knas from another, but Rob says you can. Maybe you don't learn a knas by Torah one from another, because that is whatever the Torah said. But here, if the rabbi said for mixing things up, it's a hezek shein nikar, we give you a knas, you have to pay the value, you could learn out knas from knas. So, according to Shmuel, according to Shmuel says that nasach is wine, is simply mixing up your wine with yain nesach wine. And Shmuel says that one knas you can't learn out from another knas, right? But according to Rav says you can learn out knas. What do I have to say? If I say you're high from medame, what do I have to have menasach for? My menasach must be literally making nesach wine. So he says you could learn out one knas from another knas. So what do I need all these cases for? What do I need all three cases in the Mishnah? It says each one, if you're matame truma, if you're matame truma, it's got to be thrown out. It's got to be burned. You can't. There's a total. It's what we call total loss. It's a full loss. You can't do anything with it. There may be made a knas. You're not allowed to cause tuma on even a chulin Eretz because the prushim only eat even the chulin b'tara. So you're not allowed to do that. So you've ruined it for them totally. But medama, what did I do with medama? I mixed up truma with chulin. Not a total loss. You can still sell it to kohanim. Maybe you wouldn't give a knas there. If you tell medama mishum d'shchiach. Since it's not a total loss, it's more common. I'll damage yourself by mixing up chulin and truma, so I'll cause you a small damage. Matama, which is a full loss, it's not shchich. It's that people want to damage somebody, they're not going to do such a severe thing. So matama is not a shchich. It's not as common. Maybe you don't make it to kana there. Milso shchich lo gazru chacham. The chacham did not make a decree. Those two things when I defiled and when I mixed up truma, mishum lo kamer amine. There's no issur of misa over there. You didn't do it couple of this off of menasa. Rav says that menasa means literally making up Bodazara wine. The kamer amine, I might think, well, there, you're not going to make a kana there. Why? Because you're getting debt there. Kamash like Rav Yirmiyah, the finish like Rav Yirmiyah. That no, this is not a case of kamer amine because you're chayav for the money you're chayav for as soon as you pick up the wine with the intention of making it yain nesach. And you're only chayav for misa of avodah zarah when you actually do the yain nesach, so there's no issue of kamer amine. Tomorrow's daf is daf nun gimel, which will be on the podcast from this point on the 12th line. We'll hadatani abu Rav Avin, which is the 12th line, and on Sunday we'll pick it up on the 12th line also in daf nun dalid tashma. So we're going from the 12th. Shabbos' daf will take you from the 12th line on Nun Gimel till the 12th line on Daf Nun Dal, where we'll pick it up on Sunday. Shabbat shalom l'kulam.
Shabbat shalom, beautiful.